What's up, guys? Liquid Redneck here with the first video in my Chris Chan series. So excited to be doing this. I previewed that I was going to be doing this in my channel update video. I am a huge fan of the history of Chris Chan. I'm not going to say I'm a fan of Chris, but I'm a fan of the history of Chris. And so today we're going to start the series. We're going to go from his childhood and adolescence, as you can see here on the Quickie, which links will be in the description. We're going to go from this to his first major public appearance, which was on the news when he won the Sonic Watch and Win sweepstakes when he was around 11 or 12. So we're going to start with childhood and adolescence, and hopefully this will actually be a really cool series. I'm really looking forward to it. Alright, so the questions we're kind of going to want to answer is, who is Chris? Why are people so fascinated with him? And I want to really try to help answer these questions because he is so fascinating, and I think that there are a lot of people who don't know about Chris who would be thrilled to learn about him because it just is that interesting. Alright, guys, so let's get started. Childhood and adolescence. Chris claims his first word, monkey, was spoken at 6 weeks old, and he remains proud of this feat into his 30s, regardless of how obviously unlikely and physically impossible it is to be true. The language centers in the human brain literally cannot grasp English at 6 weeks, disregarding infantile vocal cords. Oh, and before I continue, I want to say this wiki, the Quickie, is written by people who pretty much despise Chris. I know that doesn't mean it's the best source of information necessarily because of that they despise him, that it'll be slanted. However, they really have documented so much of Chris's life that it is actually very close to the truth, even though they write it like they absolutely cannot stand him, which most of them can't, but they have a morbid fascination to learn more about him. Alright. An abusive babysitter who was alone with Christopher every day for years allegedly locked him in a room at an early age. Chris apparently misses the irony in the fact that he now locks himself in a room. He once identified this confinement as the source of his autism. Between the ages of 1 and 7, Chris did not speak at all and had to visit James Madison University for speech therapy. He was diagnosed as being autistic, with the doctor projecting, at least according to Chris, that he would never make it to high school, much less be able to write his own name. So there we have that he was locked in a room by a babysitter, which you were going to learn that in his room, which is the one he was locked in, he had all the toys imaginable, everything he could enjoy himself, and it damaged him, he says. He says this is effectively the cause of his autism. I mean, that would suck, being locked in a room, but with the toys and everything, I mean, I just play video games till my parents got home, which I know I just added that until my parents got home. Basically, there's more backstory to this that they didn't add in here. His parents were out on a date and left him home with this babysitter whose name was Roach, I believe, who locked him in the room because he was annoying her, and he took it very difficultly.
The thing is, though, it's not like it was a space that was not known to him. This was a safe space to him. So really, unless he just could not stand being behind a locked door, how traumatizing could it really be? It's his room, or a room in his house. It's a room where he should feel comfortable and safe. So yeah, well, it's not cool that she did that. I wouldn't exactly say that's traumatizing. It's not like being locked in a closet or that's small, cramped, confined, and dark. I mean, this is a room with electricity and stuff to do, a space that you're used to, and I mean, heck, he would probably, if the door wasn't locked closed, he probably would have no problem staying in there for that long a period of time, just doing whatever.
Right, and before we continue, that was my wife Ray. She's going to be giving her input into the story because even though she doesn't find it as fascinating as I do, she does enjoy learning and reading about Chris. All right, so now we're going to continue. During the 1980s, Christopher was playmates with Sarah Nicole Hammer. One day she convinced him that Casper the Friendly Ghost lived in the crawlspace under her house, and when he crawled in there to look, she locked him in, beginning Chris's lifelong career of getting trolled. Apparently he doesn't hold any hard feelings over it, possibly just because she's a girl. If a guy did that to him, Chris would vow vengeance. In 1989, noted Erskine conductor Leonard Bernstein misheard Christopher's first name and called him Christian, which inexplicably convinced Christopher to later have his name legally changed. Okay, so the story behind this is we got two events there. The first one is his friend Sarah Hammer somewhat bullying him, even though he admits he didn't have many friends. She was pretty much his only friend, so he didn't really consider it bullying. He more so just considered it friendly activities between the two, but it was bullying in a sense, it appears.
And something I would like to point out is, now, as far as being locked in a space, to me, being locked in a crawl space would be way more traumatizing than being locked in a room in your home. Yet he holds no grudge against Sarah, has no hard feelings over it.
Which, that's a good point, and a lot of people think that he uses the babysitter locking him in the room as a crutch to blame for his autism.
Which you will see that is a common theme with Chris, that he never wants to accept responsibility for anything that's wrong, and also anything that could be wrong as far as his mental state or anything like that. He never wants to think that it's something he's done or something that's just genetic or whatever. There has to be someone to blame. He loves to have a scapegoat for anything someone might say against him.
Alright, so while she was talking there, I was going to bring up this picture of the Leonard Bernstein Orchestra. This, as you can see right here, is the Leonard Bernstein Orchestra. It was an animatronic choral, or not choral group, but symphony that would be set up in the mall, and it would be controlled by a conductor somewhere off-site, or maybe on-site. I'm not exactly sure how that worked. It would have to be on-site because technology then probably wouldn't allow it to be off-site.
Yeah.
But he would basically interact with the audience, and this day turnout was light, so Chris got a lot of attention. And so when he asked for Chris's name, Chris said Christopher. Well, the conductor misheard this and thought he said Christian, which I've never really seen how he could have thought that. What I think happened most likely is he said Chris Chandler or Chris Chandler, and that made him think he said Christian. But anyway, apparently Chris's father, Bob, who we'll get into his parents here later.
Fascinating person.
They thought this was a sign from God, basically, that they should change his name. This was a divine message. So they legally changed his name to Christian because of this. Because apparently Bob had wanted to name Christopher Christian. But because of whatever factor.
He took a sign that the universe agreed with him that he should have apparently named him Christian instead of naming him Christopher.
Right, so he ended up being named Christian. So from now on, I'm going to refer to him as Christian. Alright. Chris spent the 1990 to 1991 school year in the 4th grade at Nathaniel Green Elementary School until his parents pulled him out of classes over a mysterious dispute. Chris claims that he was forcibly restrained by the school's faculty and that he was made to sit on the lap of the principal, an experience that supposedly inspired his homophobia. It's possible that Chris's opinions about these events are colored more by his parents' attitudes than his own memories. The issue went to court, with Greene County seeking to have Chris sent to a special school, which Bob and Barbara likely interpreted to mean a nut house. Chris was homeschooled through the 5th grade during these proceedings. When his family exhausted all legal recourse, Chris and his father relocated to Richmond so that Chris could continue his education in a different school system, starting the 6th grade in fall of 1992. So, basically, Chris was having a dispute or Chris and his parents, rather, were having a dispute with the school system. And they basically claimed that the school system that he was in, the county that Nathaniel Green Elementary School was in, did not know how to properly, or they were not equipped to handle an autistic child. and that they held him down. The principal made him sit on his lap, and it doesn't say it. It doesn't go into it in here, but allegedly the principal said some things to Chris that he considered inappropriate. And I believe he said smacked him on his bottom at one point in some materials that I've read. And that created a very long-lasting homophobia that Chris had. Which, you know, it's unfortunate if that is the case. But as you'll see with Chris, history is... It's almost like the Joker from The Dark Knight. You can't really believe any story he says because it changes so much. And then it's just...
Depending on who he's talking to. And
the story's tailored to that person.
Yes.
And you know what? I was going to try to get to the Watch One sweepstakes, but we've already gone, you know, quite a bit here on his early life, and I don't want to throw too much at you today, and that would probably be good for another video. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to talk to you about his parents. So we're going to stop there when his family basically moved to another. They basically moved to another school district, so he could learn there as opposed to being in the school system at Nathaniel Green Elementary. So we're going to stop with him going into the 6th grade, and we're going to look at his parents, Robert Franklin Chandler Jr. and Barbara Chandler. Alright. Robert Franklin Chandler Jr. was the father of Christian Weston Chandler, Carol Chandler, and David Allen Chandler, the stepfather of Cole Smithy, and the husband of Barbara Weston Chandler. Now, there are several other people, children that Bob had, which we'll get into those at some other point. That'll probably be later on once we cover the main story. Bob became a firm favorite with the Trolls due to Chris's antipathy towards him and for his infamous cameo when he walked in on Chris mass debating. Now, those are some Chrisisms, some terms that Chris had, and we'll be going into what those terms mean later on. His nickname, the Internet Lumberjack, came from this incident, no pun intended. Despite being estranged from his other children and despised by his stepson, Bob was widely viewed as a better parent than his wife Barbara. This was due to Bob being somewhat concerned with Chris's idiotic behavior and the fact that he occasionally tried to encourage a modicum of responsibility in Chris's pathetic life, bringing up the fact that he had devoted 29 years to raising the selfish man-child. Of course, Chris is almost entirely unaffected by Bob's efforts to better him, but unlike Barb, he at least made the effort.
Barbara is one who just always played into whatever Chris's delusions. She was on board with him. Bob tried... He was more based in the real world.
Right. And man, there's so much of this. Man, I should have planned out a lot more videos. But anyway, so that's just the basic about Bob. What you need to know about him, mainly right now, is that he was Chris's father. He was older when he had Chris. That is maybe one reason why he was autistic. Both him and his mother were almost senior citizens at that point. But his career, he worked for Western Electric as an engineer. He also holds the patent for something to do with the way Kleenexes are pulled out, which was big. I mean, and they were very proud of his accomplishments. He was also very world conscious. He had a large collection of records and I mean, look at all that stuff. He had
newspapers, I believe, too. Magazines,
records, VHSs. He had a huge collection of things. He was very worldly. He was intelligent, and so he was a very impressive man.
Of course, he has his own little kookiness to him.
Right.
The whole family does, but out of all of the Chandlers, to me, he seems the most quote-unquote normal.
Right, now this is Barb. This is Barbara Chandler, his mother. And this picture is how she looks now. However, she looked very different when she was younger. I mean, everybody looks different when they're younger, but when the Chris Chan saga began, she looked very different. Barbara Ann Weston Chandler is the widow of Bob Chandler and the mother of Christian Weston Chandler and Cole Smithy. The sole recognition for her mother qualities is the Mother of the Year 2000 award Chris created for her. She has not won the award since. But basically, she was a secretary at the company that Bob worked for. And that's how they became to start dating and get married. Here's a picture of Barbara when around that time. and that is Chris's stepbrother, Cole, or not
His
stepbrother, his
half-brother.
half-brother, Cole Smithy, which, like I said, we'll get into them much later. But anyway, I know right there, I'll stop it there. We've introduced you to the parents. We've introduced you up to 6th grade in Chris's life. I know this has been a little rambly, a little kind of here and there, but I'm trying to get a format down. I'm trying to get everything going so we can, start hitting the bullet points. And hopefully next time we'll have a little bit more of a game plan, where to start, what to do. And
open to suggestions.
If you have any suggestions, please comment, like, subscribe. Feel free. We don't mind it. We're open to criticism, and we'll take compliments. But anyway, if you haven't subscribed, thank you so much. I've had a couple new subscribers. So thankful. So glad you're here. Like the video. Comment. It means the world to me. And we will see you guys next time when we will be talking about the Sonic the Hedgehog Watch and Win sweepstakes. And that's really when Chris's internet career, or not internet because he went on the internet back then, but that's really when his career of being
in the public
eye kicks off. Alright guys, this has been Liquid Redneck along with Ray, and we will see you guys later. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.